And I think in a way, the spiritual journey is also about this. How can I be at my optimal, right? How can I experience life in a certain way? There's an element of that.
Mm-hmm.
And so and because I had faith and trust in it, that's where I think the searching began.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, let me experiment with this. Let me understand. I want to understand through my life experience, not through a book, not through somebody else's words, but I want to learn things and I want to apply them and see what works and what doesn't for me.
Very. My name is Dale Cross, and welcome to another edition of Soul Inspire. This is the audio video podcast that features spiritually awakening souls sharing uplifting stories to inspire you on your own unique soul journey. And on this episode, it's my pleasure to welcome Jasjit Rai. Jasjit Rai naturally opens new worlds for people. She's been leading transformation in companies and individuals through consulting, high level coaching, and speaking through her business, JoyWorks, JoyWorks, since 1999. As your seventh sense, she activates your innate intelligence to draw out what is yet unexpressed and unrecognized so that it can be used. This creates leaps forward and major inner shifts along new trajectories that reflect true, bolder visions and capacities. Her people value meaning, purpose, and evolution and desire to channel their energies into business, including translating it into dollars. On her journey, she's traveled many paths to deepen her knowledge and to have multidimensional experiences. This has included teaching dance movement for over 20 years, which rapidly opened her own creative ability and higher awareness. Born in India, growing up in Canada, and also having traveled and worked in Europe, she has an international spirit and engages effortlessly with different cultures, recognizing the unique lens of each. Jasjit, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dale. It's a pleasure to be here.
Oh, the pleasure's all mine. All right. Well, let's kick things off with because this is where you get to where our guests get to share uplifting stories to inspire others, and this is drawn from your spiritual journey. So let's start off. Let's go into your childhood. Let me know. Did your spiritual journey start back then, and how was that?
Yes, it did. I would say somewhere around the ages of 7 to 11 years of age was when a certain awareness started being there.
Okay.
So unlike some people, I don't think I've had any major awakening, so to speak, or event that happened mystical or traumatic or anything that made that happen. But it was almost like a gentle awareness just made itself known. And where that came in, I what I recall, of course, I can't remember all the details, but what I recall is like at that age around 6, 7, maybe, starting to do some very simple prayers with my family,
Okay.
just like a mantra, just a repetitive, spend, I don't know if we spent like 10 minutes on it, nothing like huge, just an awareness. So that was, I think, my first, like, there is something beyond us, there is God, and then I, as a child, 100% accepted it. It made all the sense in the world to me. I had no issues with it. It was just like, it actually made me feel really safe,
Mm-hmm.
and also gave me a confidence of not being alone, I guess. So it was a very positive experience. Yeah. So I think that's what I remember. And I did have certain questions that started coming into my mind. So around those years as well, like we must have come from somewhere. We didn't just, somehow form on this planet and that's it. Like, there
Mm-hmm.
was
Right.
clear that. Of course, they came from somewhere.
Mhm.
I wonder why we're here. I wonder what I'm going to do. I wonder what, what do you want to do?
Right.
I was so curious, even with kids, and actually even before that age 5, like I wanted to know what kids were going to do when they grew up. Because I had an awareness that there was a choice. Oh, we get to do this. So life at that point really felt like it was going to be like a banquet, and it's like, well, what do I get? What do I want?
Great. So it sounds to me like your parents had some input into that, as far as, did they have a particular religion, or were they just spiritual themselves, or?
The religion is Sikhism, uh,
Okay.
Sikh, Sikhism,
Yes.
and but at that stage, it was very light though. Like it wasn't like deep indoctrination or anything.
Okay.
the the awareness of it. So maybe on some level it felt more mystical. Later, as I grew older, they got more into it in the religion and following that. The early days for me were more just the awareness, simple awareness of basic things in the religion. And again, all of that seemed to make sense when I was growing up, and provided some kind of foundation to connect with that kind of energy from. I remember my grandmother telling me, do you call them parables?
Hmm.
Yeah, like and I loved it because they were about miracles and things, and so I was just like, wow, this is cool.
Yeah.
So it made a lot of things much more interesting for me, and I wished I didn't understand why people didn't talk about these things more. Like as a
Right.
child, I would have like this is what was exciting.
Hmm.
Regular life was just ordinary and not exciting to me. But
Right.
those stories, the experiences, and what it meant, that was something that I appreciated and valued at that time.
Hmm. So did your parents, so it sounds to me like your parents were not super religious. They were just, it's more like, I don't know, like Christians, they go at Christmas time or they go at Easter time, but that's kind of it. Or like, how serious was this to your
Yeah,
parents?
that's a good well, like it's just like it was there present,
Mm.
but it wasn't you have to do anything, or like, it
Hmm.
was much just very relaxed.
That's
Again,
good.
at that stage, it changed later,
Oh, okay.
but at that stage, that's where it was. And I think it's because of that it's almost like that gave me a freedom to engage with that in however my imagination took me, versus
Ah,
being told this is how it is.
hmm.
So it felt like quite a blessing because of
Yes.
that. Yeah.
That sounds very healthy, because a lot
Yeah.
of people that are born into families that have a particular religion, it can be very regimented, and the child doesn't really have a say. It's sort of almost pushed on the child. It sounds like your experience was quite the opposite.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Great. Okay, so that's when you were a child. And then let's move over to more when you were a teenager. Did this carry on? Did your curiosity open up new worlds in spirituality, or what took
As
place
a
then?
teenager, not so much.
Okay.
Because I think it's like, when we're younger, our imaginations are allowed to run wild, and we're more free in terms of time and everything. And then when, high school comes along, suddenly there's a lot more on our plates.
Yes.
Um, that was also when my parents got deeper into the religion.
Oh, okay.
So
Interesting.
now all of a sudden they were moving into it, which was very different.
Hmm.
Um, at first, like I felt okay with it, but it also was quite a shift, and I think I tried to accept it as best as I could, but
Hmm.
it was a different way of being and thinking, and was more challenging, I suppose. But at that time, I was really more just busy with high school, with life as it was. I did learn more actually. In the religion, I read more prayers. I went through certain things like that on a daily basis. And again, like I had a positive experience because it was like by doing that, like it's like any practice, when you do it daily,
Hmm.
it gives you a certain strength. So I think as a teenager, I was very grounded, very
Okay.
grounded,
Yep.
relaxed in who I was. I didn't have a lot of challenges and issues out of the usual, teenage stuff,
Hmm.
because I had this sense of a strong foundation inside myself and a strong connection, both
Hmm.
to, life around me, but also a higher life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, at that point, but I didn't consciously aim to engage more or anything like that. I was just kind of going along for the ride as my parents were moving into it.
Mm-hmm.
And then things shifted later as an adult.
Okay, let's move there. So how did things shift later when you were an adult?
I think so, after university is also, you're open to the big wide world, the real
Mm-hmm.
world, so to speak. And so I went off and had adventures and, did lots of things. And I
Mm.
did them based on my inner voice and
Oh,
intuition.
oh,
So that was
nice.
very strong. Again, unlike a lot of people who might be like looking for approval or what am I supposed to do,
Hmm.
I really trusted what my inner voice said. So when my inner voice, through university was like, okay, after I graduate, I'm going to Europe. That's all it knew. I didn't know. I
Oh.
didn't think about jobs or anything like that. I just like, I'm going to Europe. And that's what I did. I did get a job there actually. That was my first one there, and it just happened. Like everything just opened up and flourished, So
Yeah.
I spent most of my 20s like that, like okay, what next? And I'd hear an inner. It was another a gut reaction, a kind of an inner thought that came,
Mm.
something that said do this. And another, few years later, I moved to London, England. And again, it was something in me was searching for, there's something more than just having a job
Mm-hmm.
in Canada that I
Mm-hmm.
can't, like, I've gone through a couple of jobs. I got to have something more. And
Yeah.
so literally was like asking within, what do I do next? And then literally I had a thought come in one morning, go to London. That was it. Actually, this is the word London. And I
Hmm.
went, oh, okay. Well, I guess I'll do some research on that,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I think that pull of the inner voice and also the willingness to go follow it,
Yeah.
was unique compared to most people around me.
Yes.
And that's also when I started maybe breaking free and going, okay, I want to know who I am outside the parameters of the way I was raised and
Mm.
what I was taught to believe. I began to, I think, explore the world and get interested. I was very passionate. I've always been very passionate about the world and learning and growth
Nice.
and new ways of doing things. So I think, in
Mm-hmm.
the 20s, it was exciting that I actually got to do that.
Nice. Nice. So what I'm hearing you saying is that you were really letting the divine lead because you were listening to your inner voice and you were surrendering to that voice, and it's unique because a lot of people are led, I think, by ego, which is kind of the little I instead of the big I. It sounds like you were allowing yourself to trust in and be led by the big I. Would you agree with this?
Yeah. And I mean, no one questioned me dramatically, but I definitely got looks like, what is she doing? Like, where she's off again doing this, or
Yeah.
like they could see that I was compelled by something, but like, nobody was really having the conversation with me as to what was compelling me.
Oh, okay. So people were just like flabbergasted. Wow, she's doing this. Now she's doing
Yeah,
that.
yeah, exactly.
Right.
It's that kind of journey at that time.
Right. So maybe from other people's lenses, they are not maybe just letting the divine lead in their own life. So they're trying to figure out, oh, is this very practical? Like all the questions the ego would have would be, is she making the proper plan? Is she being practical? But no, all that stuff's out the window, really, because you are trusting that
Mhm.
it'll all fall into place. If you hear the word London, you're like, okay, I'm going to go there. Not that you wouldn't do some research, of course, but you would go there and then you would just trust that
Yeah.
things are opening up. And it sounds to me like that's exactly what happened. Things flowed and you were living in a state of flow. Well, I assume you still
Very
are.
much.
I
Very
mean, I
much.
assume you still do that, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, like I've gone through times when I haven't felt that flow, but at
Oh,
that point it was there, and that trip, like it took me some months to get ready, prepare, make sure I had some, money in the bank so I could do this thing.
yeah.
And I wasn't, counting on anyone else. I didn't know people in London. It's not like I had a
Yeah.
network there.
Yeah.
I did have family in the UK, but they wouldn't have known what to do for either. So I literally got on the plane and
Mm.
went.
Yeah.
And I got a job within 2 weeks.
Nice.
I got a place to stay that I really liked it in 3 days.
Hmm.
And everybody was shocked because they were like, what? Like they expected me to come back home going, oh, it didn't work out,
Yeah. Well, I'm not shocked at all that it worked out because I notice in my own life if I listen to divine guidance, it always works out. It always seems to work out actually perfectly. But it's interesting whenever I don't listen to that divine guidance and I just go on my own ego, then everything fails, everything falls apart. So it's like,
Mm,
I think I should just, I think I should just go with the flow more in my
right.
life. And that's what I'm trying. That's what I'm not trying. That's what I'm being now. It's just like living in flow and just letting things, because the opportunities just present themselves. It's not like I'm making a bunch of plans and trying to follow. I know that's the typical thing to do, but I found it's never really worked that well when I've made plans. Yeah, if I wasn't inspired. Of course, you make plans when you're inspired by spirit
Yeah.
to make plans. Those plans seem to really work out well.
Yeah, I find when there's the two working together,
Mm,
in my
mm.
case, that works the best.
Okay,
Otherwise,
middle way.
yeah, because otherwise it's too passive or it's too aggressive,
That's
right?
right.
Like,
Yes,
oh, I've
yes.
got to make it happen, or let me just sit around waiting for a sign kind of thing, and then
Yeah.
it happens, right?
So
So that's
balance.
so I find like I have to be activated and feel alive because if I'm not that, then I end up in the passive seat,
Mm,
um,
mhm.
waiting for something to happen rather than realizing I'm actually part of the equation.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're still taking action. Yeah, it's not like you're just sitting there. Exactly, exactly. But it's like as Abraham Hicks says, it's inspired action.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
it's coming from your heart and you have the passion and yeah, it's very interesting that you say this because yeah, I recently heard someone else say the same thing. I think they call it some people refer to it as the middle way or the middle path where
mm,
because there's the two extremes. Oh, Frederick Dodson, that's who it was. He wrote a book called Parallel Worlds of Self or something like this.
yeah, yeah.
And I don't know if you know Frederick Dodson, but I
That's
really like him. And he talks about this idea of quantum jumping and
yeah,
changing your reality and shifting. And he says, personally, he says, I use the ego and I listen to divine guidance because he
yes,
goes, if you just listen only and you wait, yeah, like you say, if you're waiting around for a sign, then he says you can become, I guess passive. I guess that might be the word, something similar to that he used. And then, and if you're all action, 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 that's like that's the other extreme. And then you're not listening to any divine guidance. You're just trying to
hmm.
control and manipulate and change. And that never really works out well for me, anyways. It doesn't work out well.
I mean, I think that's what growth, like that's how I perceive growth.
Mm,
Growth is learning those two energies and how to work with them.
yeah, it can be tricky.
Um,
It can be
that's real
tricky.
growth,
Yes,
right?
but that's real growth. Yes. Yeah, finding that balance, finding that harmony between the two.
Yeah.
Okay, so it sounds so did you also get so it doesn't sound to me, but maybe I'm wrong. Did you get into the whole drinking, partying, more of a secular world? Did you ever dip your toes into exploring, the drugs and the drink and what the majority of the world
No,
does? Never
I didn't.
appealed.
I just wasn't interested. I just looked fake to me.
So it never appealed to you to wind up face down in a gutter on a street. Oh, okay, I understand. I understand.
And I again I attribute it to the grounding experience that I had through, spirituality, religion from an early age, and the
Mhm.
values that I was
Mhm.
taught growing
Mhm.
up. So that, like, I think it just gave me such an inner clarity and strength that I
Mhm.
didn't feel I needed anything like that.
Mhm.
Well, why? I just didn't need it.
Yeah,
It
it
didn't
seemed empty.
feel appealing.
Yeah.
Also, my body, like since I was young, for example, when I'm eating, I eat slower than a lot of people do. So I'm very present. I aim to be present, I guess. And so
That's
the idea of alcohol, too much alcohol, like my body would have just said, what are you doing? Like, stop it. Like, no, I don't
right.
want this, right? So
Right.
I was attuned to keeping myself, I guess, clear.
Very good. Well, that's a very healthy way of living. And the idea of chewing your food slowly, it actually starts digesting in the mouth, doesn't it? So that's very
Yeah.
healthy for digestion.
Yeah. So I feel, I feel fortunate for a lot of the values and the self-awareness that I seem to have
Mhm.
that in that first part of my life
Mhm.
really supported all the things. And I think that's what, again, in my 20s allowed that ease to happen and
Mhm.
those major shifts that I was kind of taking
Yeah.
okay, I'm done with this job now to move over here and I'm going to move countries. Now I'm going to do this. It just, I felt supported in that.
Beautiful. Beautiful. That's great. So, what have you noticed? Did you have, what was the major catalysts, some of the spiritual catalysts you've had that have propelled you in your spiritual growth? Can you think of any of those, or is it?
So, I mean, I'm painting a picture that shows you a lot of the good experiences I've had. And
Mhm.
because they did feel prominent, the thing that I've learned since then, and I think this is part of the human journey, is there's also another side. There's other things.
Yeah.
There's things that we might have put aside, ignored, that later come up for us that aren't working like we thought, right? So
Yeah.
certain things in our life can go beautifully and we're like blessed in them, and then other avenues might feel like, why don't they work?
Hmm.
Or it worked 2 years ago. What stopped? So I began to have some of that experience, and
Okay.
that is where my natural instinct was to seek out answers.
Okay.
And
Guidance. Guidance.
yeah, and
Yeah.
I guess it came from what you might call, like, I studied business, so the idea of peak performance or higher performance, right? That
Hmm.
always excited me. And I think in a way the spiritual journey is also about this. How can I be at my optimal, right? How can I experience life in a certain way? There's an element of that.
Hmm.
And so, and because I had faith and trust in it, that's where I think the searching began.
Hmm.
And it was like, let me experiment with this. Let me understand. I want to understand through my life experience, not through a book, not through somebody else's words, but I want to learn things and I want to apply them and see what works and what doesn't for me.
Very experiential.
Yeah. Yeah. That felt really essential.
Well, that makes sense. I feel like experience is the greatest teacher, much better than a book or. And some people are on a constant quest or a constant search. Like they're like, okay, their identity is I am a spiritual person, more like ego,
Mhm.
spiritual ego, but they don't realize it is like, okay, so they're wrapped up and they're attached to this identity of being a spiritual person, and they jump from author to author and workshop to workshop, and they spend thousands and thousands of dollars, but they don't really embody the what they're learning. It's just they're constantly in the state of learning. So it
Yeah.
sounds to me like you're not one that got caught up in that.
Well, I
Like
mean,
constantly
I've
searching.
certainly read more books than I thought I might read, but it's like I have such a hunger for that and love for that. And I also created a career that was about growth and learning as
Okay.
well.
Yeah.
So a lot of it felt very relevant and it
Hmm.
just all tied in.
Hmm.
I didn't go the route of taking, 100,000 workshops, or
Yeah.
because it's very much, well, if I'm going to do something, I want to then apply it, and you can't
Yeah.
apply everything.
Huh.
So it was, again, like it's not a tidy journey. It's not a perfected journey. There were some
Right.
years where there was a lot of feeling of being lost, and that was really foreign to me,
Hmm.
given what I told you about how I grew up, where things felt a little more clear and directed and
Hmm.
intentional. And
Hmm.
so going through this feeling of what do I do next, or why aren't things working anymore,
Hmm.
that was a very challenging time because I hadn't experienced that prior to then.
Right.
And to do it as an adult too, right? Like it's one thing when you're younger, people are like, oh,
Hmm.
you're young, you got time to learn. It's okay
Yeah.
to make mistakes. When you're
Hmm.
older, people don't want you to make mistakes anymore. They want you
Right.
to have everything together. And so,
Right.
um, yeah, so I think that's where a lot of the seeking of mine was going on. Like what is true for me, and not see, I wasn't trying to find the answer for everybody. It was just like everything
Hmm.
to me is personal. We're all different personalities, we're different energies, we have different experiences, different education. And so each of us is going to experience the world in our own individual lens, right?
Hmm.
And so I was trying to find mine, like how could I best be myself and all of who I am versus just, the parts that are allowed to be seen and heard.
Okay, very good. Yeah, I mean, certainly the search and the quest and even going through the workshops, I mean, it's all perfect as it is for
Yeah.
everyone, even people that do have that identity. And then eventually, but nobody wants to stay there, of course. Eventually, you realize, well, the answers I seek are within myself, and get quiet and silent and present. And then there's less need for all the searching. But definitely, that's a stage that
Yeah.
I went through, everybody seems to go through, or most people. Not, I guess not Eckhart Tolle. I guess he just woke up, but
No, he had quite a
oh,
he had a
he did
journey.
quite a
Yeah,
few
yeah. I mean,
workshops.
he was almost going to commit suicide. I mean, he went
Mm,
through his very dark night of the soul before
right, right, right.
enlightenment,
Yeah.
experience happened.
Well,
Yeah.
speaking of that's right, I do remember he was very depressed, and then I guess that's what it was. Then he woke up,
Mhm.
and he
Yeah.
calls it a sudden wake up.
Yeah.
But you're right. Before that, he probably did his work different.
Yeah, I don't know about, yeah, I can't
I
speak
don't
to
know.
that.
But
Yeah.
okay, so speaking of the dark night of the soul, would you say that what you just described, where you were talking about you didn't have that experience in your childhood, but suddenly you felt a little lost, was that your dark night of the soul, or what would you say? Was there a lot
Yeah,
of
I would call it. There were definitely experiences of that at various times.
Mhm.
And some of it, so again, I had this, a lot of people say, oh, you're so brave, at a young age, you just went off and did these things and you were so sure of yourself.
Mhm.
And so this is where, when the lost feeling started to show up, it was partially because I was operating in a very different way than most people.
Yeah.
And I didn't have the structures around me
Hmm.
to give me that sense of stability and here's a path. Because like earlier I had school, in
Oh,
school
right.
for so long, right?
Structure. Yeah.
So for 15, 16 years, I had the structure of school. So that was supportive and protective in a way, right? Then
Hmm.
I, had jobs for a few years, and those jobs again provided a structure. But
Hmm.
then every time I would take a step out, so I began to live a different life than my upbringing taught me to live.
Hmm. Hmm.
The go to university, get a great job, get married, and settle down.
Oh, okay. Different.
So
Yes.
when I didn't do that,
Hmm.
all of a sudden there wasn't an echo around me to go, hey, you're perfectly wonderful, everything's fine.
Mm.
So I think that was difficult. It's not that I needed everyone's approval.
Hmm.
Uh, I don't really search for that, but I was shocked that I had such a it felt like a lack of structures that could then support me to keep going where I was. So I think it was around by the age of 30 that I started my own business.
Okay.
right? So that was another thing. So, not having a family by then, not like I wasn't interested in I have to buy a house and settle down. I
Hmm.
even buying a car was like a big commitment to me
Oh,
back
okay,
then,
okay.
right?
Yeah.
So, and then so I left like the societal expectations on a personal level, and then professionally I after doing a few jobs and then being bored of them and then like okay let me move somewhere, and I moved to London and I did that
Mm,
for a while, and then again and there was an end point to that. It was always this like then it was like okay none of these jobs are taking me where I thought they would. Like I really loved them too. I really,
mhm.
really did. But it would last like a couple of years before it would be like I didn't want to go to work anymore suddenly. And
Okay.
it was like that was again was foreign because that's not how I normally feel about work. So I began. I realized it was actually on a trip to Hawaii.
Mm, mhm.
I had a moment where it was sitting at lunch with a friend I was traveling with about 2 days before we were supposed to return. And so we were talking about coming back and going back to work, and I started
Mm,
crying, like bawling, crying. And I had no idea I had all this emotion inside that
mhm.
was felt stifled,
Mm,
you know, just
mhm.
stifled. And I didn't want to go back to that job. I mean, the trip in Hawaii, if you've been, the Big Island is in a very magical place. And it felt like heaven. And so I think that contrast in a positive way of this beautiful experience that really opened me, perhaps energetically, then brought into light that the job was stifling.
Okay.
So that's when the crying happened, and my friend was shocked, and I was shocked, and I was like, "What's
Right.
going on?" But in that moment, I realized I couldn't go back to it. So I came back after the holiday, and I gave my notice.
Hmm.
And I remember the receptionist saying to me, "I have never seen anyone look so peaceful after quitting your job."
Oh, so it was relief.
It was like this, everything felt good again. Like truth. Basically, I returned to alignment with truth again.
Mm,
And so and the idea was I was going to start my own business. So the dark night of the soul experience that I'm referring to, happened in the next decade or and two a couple of times
okay.
because I was always making major shifts when something inside me said, do this or you're
Right.
done, right? If I was done, it would be a very strong like inner I can't do this anymore. Like I don't want to get out of bed and go to the job anymore. It was
Mm,
that sudden. And while it was very rattling in a way, and I couldn't explain it to other people who were like, why would you leave it? It's a good job. It's a good blah, blah, blah.
right.
That inner voice was compelling me.
Yes.
And so that's where I talk about like that feeling of being kind of on my own because I'd carved such a path in my life that I didn't have role models around me. I didn't have examples and mentors and the kind of support that I would have loved to have to
Hmm.
show me how to do this this way, right?
Right.
Alas, the books, reading the books and like looking towards more the spiritual, because that was the only place that I thought, okay, here people do talk about this.
Hmm.
This is where I can go to have a conversation without having to come to a conclusion right away. It's not just the logical mind. I can explore something and question and ask and then find what is right, what is correct.
Very good. Very good. So would you say that it was at this period of time in your 30s where you got more deeply into some of these spiritual teachings?
Yeah, I think 30s and 40s. Like it's always continuing. And
You like to learn.
yeah,
That's why
it's
you
just
like to
like it's a
learn.
very innate desire. Like it's
Hmm.
just I value it in so many ways. I mean,
Hmm.
yeah. So there's that.
Do you have a
Um,
subscription to Gaia?
Actually, I don't.
Oh,
I
okay, okay. Just not
I
that
have,
I'm promoting it. I'm just saying that's
yeah, I have
I
this
really enjoy
way.
those shows.
Sure. My way, and it's kind of like the way I do other things as well, is allowing synchronicity and spontaneity to guide me.
Right.
So, I had this phase where we have a beautiful library where I live. The Central is just gorgeous. And
Mm,
so I would just go to the section and I would just feel called to, let's
yep.
read this. And I would take
Yep.
that home and read it. It was like, I enjoy that journey of kind of that gentle surprise. I mean, it's led again, it's that what we talked about earlier, that
Mm,
mix of, my own desire mixed with the flow, right? So
yes.
like going into the library and going, okay, well here's a shelf, like what attracts me, right?
Hmm.
So I had the impulse to go there, but then I also allowed the whatever was there to speak to me, so to speak.
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
and so a lot of my learning was in that manner versus looking up whatever the top 10 books are that I'm supposed to read.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah,
I
exactly.
mean, by the
Yeah.
time I came across, decided to read Eckhart Tolle's book, for example, The Power of Now,
Mm,
I mean, it was probably years later because I wasn't called to it when it came out.
exactly.
So that's something as well that for me, and then people I also work with as clients, is really important is not to be ruled by whatever again, society is saying, read this,
Yeah.
watch this right now. Yes, we can get ideas and all of that. I
Hmm.
obviously do that.
Hmm.
But it was very much, where am I now? What kind of book am I needing?
Yes.
Um, or if it's a workshop, what kind of workshop am I needing?
Yes.
Um, and the workshops I attended, honestly, there were fewer, but they tended to have a practical side to them
Okay.
because I have a very practical side to
Oh, you
myself.
do, not just a free
Where,
spirit.
where I like to see, I like things to be tangible. So it's again the blend of the two.
Okay.
Not I wasn't a spiritual seeker, as in the people who might go to a meditation retreat for a couple of weeks
Yeah.
or travel far to these spiritual teachers. That's not who I've been.
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
It's been a more personally defined journey. And I think part of it is because I already had a certain foundation from my childhood.
Hmm.
I already felt kind of secure in that. So
Mm.
it was like, how can I apply things to my daily life,
Yeah.
right? How can I make them real now? If I'm going through this challenge, how can it support that right now?
Nice, nice. So it sounds like you've managed to find a nice balance between listening to inner guidance and then mixing that together with the desire you have to
Yeah, to me,
explore certain things.
they're combined, like they go together.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They don't have to, though. They don't have to.
Right, right, right.
Just how I'm kind of designed.
Yeah, well, you are perfect as you are. That's for sure. Everybody is. And that's what I like because everybody that comes on here has such unique spiritual journeys, and then it is inspiring for others' unique journeys. So that's really, really nice. So you said that when you reached about age 30, that's when you got into your own business. Tell me how that was and what was that and how did that go?
Yeah, so as I said, that trip in to Hawaii kind of,
Mm-hmm.
that was, I guess it was like an awakening, right, of sorts.
Mm-hmm.
But it was more about what I wanted to do next and where I felt. And I I was very excited by my own gifts that I have and other people's gifts. I studied business because I was interested in how people go out there and make things happen. Um, I was excited about people creating products and services and
Mm-hmm.
helping each other, providing for each other. I saw it in that light. I saw business as creation, basically, a vehicle to create something.
Mm.
Um,
Great.
so I enjoyed that. And then through the jobs I had, I was very fortunate in some ways, but I was very intentional about what I took and the directions I moved. But I sought a kind of career that allowed me to be very independent. So
Okay.
I was standing in front of groups by age 22 and facilitating groups, and
Mm-hmm.
I another experience. I was working with a director and changing a whole bunch of things inside the organization.
Mhm.
So I had a lot of freedom to use my talents and gifts. And I was very vocal about them. Like I was just such one of those excited employees, right?
Mhm.
And so
Great. Passionate.
from that experience, I felt capable. I felt very capable. And I was like, well, I'm not the best employee if you just want me to sit down and do the 9 to 5 repetitive thing. That's not where I'm my best.
Mhm. Mhm.
I like some of it, of course. Like we all need a certain amount of routine, I think, but
Mm.
I was the one who would come up with new ideas and change things. I was the one who would inspire people to think differently and start something new. And so I thought, well, why not package this and offer it to companies so they don't have to hire me full time? They might need me for 3 months or a year or whatever it is. And I can deliver that. And I can deliver with full joy, passion, excitement, and like I'm all in. But then once I'm done and that's complete and they've changed whatever needed changing, then I can, step out gracefully and then move
Mm.
on to the next thing and all that.
Mhm.
So that was the vision I had.
Very
Um,
nice.
and again, I just literally started it and started telling people this is what I'm doing now.
Yeah,
I'm just like
yeah.
everything else.
Very nice. Very
Yeah.
nice. So how is the spiritual side interwoven with your business, do you think?
Again, I think it's the vision. To me, when we talk about vision, that already is not talking about just the mundane level of things, right? So if a business is offering a product, right? But what is your vision? How do you fit into the bigger landscape? Why is this important? Is there a mission in this? Right? So these are the kind of higher level questions that I might ask so that a business can get really in tune with all of that. Because once they are in tune, everything actually flows. This is where efficiency shows up. This is where effectiveness shows up, where right choices show up, where conflict decreases, where teamwork increases as a result, where suddenly, a new venture is found. So that to me, like I perceive that as a spiritual thing because spirit to me we're meant to evolve,
Hmm.
not to stay the same. And spirituality is part of that evolution, constantly ascending into new levels of being. And so I see a business in the same manner. And when a business operates with that energy, I think there's a sense of wholeness that people feel when they're in it, and that contributes to society at large, that contributes to the planet. Better choices and healthier choices are made. And so for me, it's not business for business sake. It's to be part of this world and create something magnificent for us. So
Fantastic. I like
a
that.
choice we have.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Okay, and then tell me a little bit about this dance that you're involved with, please, because that sounds like, is this like dervish? Is this like some spiritual type of
That's
dance? Like how
right.
does that go? Tell us about that.
Yeah. So I founded my business in 1999. So while I received that clear thing, this is what you're doing now, and I went and I did it, and I landed my first corporate client, I was now working at home alone. And that was scary. It was stressful. It was like a bit depressing.
Mm.
My work was always with people. And so I love like lots of moving parts and different people and projects and teams. And like that felt very natural groups to me. And so when I'm all of a sudden, it's me sitting at home in my living room, not having that kind of energy around me, it was hard. It just felt really hard. And I mean, I'm so grateful that like that, as I said, the work I found worked very quickly and felt good about it. but it was like I had to recreate myself almost
Okay.
energetically. I had to really like it was just hard and it was scary. But not the kind where I was walking around crying or anything. Like nobody would have noticed really.
Okay.
But
Okay.
inside myself, it was like when I would feel like procrastination, I wouldn't want to do something. I knew what I had to do, but I wasn't doing it. Why am I
Mm.
not doing it? So all of that just that big transition I had made told me that I had to go start creating experiences where I got to be around people and activity and doing things. And at one point, and I guess you can call it again another very catalytic moment, I had like a voice in my head, my own voice going, get out of your head, get out of your head, get out of your head. Like it was just, there's nothing else I wanted to say, get out of your head. And I was like, what the heck is going on? Right?
Yes.
What is it asking me to do?
Get out of
And
your head.
I figured it out and I thought, okay, basically, you're telling me that I'm way too mentally focused, way too intellectually focused. I need to branch out. And I'm running a business now. I can't get sick. I can't go just take days off because I don't, like it's a different ball game I'm playing.
Mm.
So I've got to be of a health and mindset and well-being that allows me to do this thing, right? And so that's when I was like, okay, physical. I got the spiritual, I got the mental, I'm emotionally connected, but physically, I didn't work out. I didn't exercise. I was very tuned to my body and its needs, but I wasn't like working out.
Uh-huh.
I didn't want to go jogging or anything like that. I didn't want to do
Mm.
sports. But that clarity when it said get out of your head, that's what I was like, okay, I need to find something physical. So I just basically started looking a little bit like, what am I going to do? What is that? This dance, but like I didn't want to be a dancer, I
Mhm.
got martial artist, and it's like I don't want to hit anyone or anything. I just
Yeah.
understood, right? So I was
Right.
kind of going through ideas, and literally I saw this brochure at a community center of a class called NIA, NIA, and
NIA, Nia.
yeah,
Okay.
and I thought there's something just, when something speaks to you, like, it doesn't even, it's not the words, it's just like the energy.
Mm.
I felt the energy and I thought, okay, I'll go try this thing out. I don't know what it is, but I'll go try it out. And I went to that class, and within the first couple of minutes, that my inner voice came in and it said, if you want to teach anything physical, this is it.
Hmm.
And my mind was going, what the heck? Teach? Who said anything about teaching? Right? Like,
Okay.
oh my God, I'm not a dancer. I'm not going to do this. Like, this is, like, how dare you? So this is all going on while I'm trying to follow the teacher here in the
Yes.
class.
Yeah.
And I left that class feeling like I was 10 feet tall. So it
Mm.
was, you know,
Mhm.
I just felt like opened and large and spacious. And the
Wow.
class had allowed me to play. The class had allowed me to connect with masculine and feminine energies. It had allowed me to explore. I could get things wrong and I could get things right. And that whole energy was something that I felt like I'd been missing and hadn't even known I was missing.
Mhm.
So I walked out of that class and I kind of said to myself, okay, I heard your message. I'll stick around. I'll keep going to this class. And if you don't go away as an idea, I'll consider teaching.
Mm.
So that's how it started. And it hadn't gone away after the first few months.
Mm.
And so I thought I'm going to make a commitment. I'm going to go take the first level of teacher training. And that was another point that was strangely scary. Not strangely. I mean, here, like I studied business. I was a consultant. What the heck I was gonna be dancing like crazy, right? It just
Mm.
sounded crazy to me.
Okay, it's interesting where the higher self takes us. Yes.
Exactly. So again, like everything else, I trusted it. And we were given some materials prior to the training to get ready, practice, watch some videos, they were very basic. And Dale, I didn't want to get off my couch. It was
Oh.
like I just couldn't move. So
Mhm.
there was like in this inner paralysis, fear, something that
Right.
like, this is big. This is not like I can get on a plane and go to a foreign country and
Mhm.
not speak the language and feel okay. That's not scary to me.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. But
Nice.
this was scary. This
Right.
was
So this
scary.
is this is challenging you out of your comfort zone. This one,
Yeah,
this one.
totally.
Okay.
So I thought, well, look, you signed up for it. You're gonna do it. You didn't do the homework. Fine. Just you're gonna show up and figure it out. So I went and it was um the most different experience I've ever had, I think. This was the first time I felt so out of my comfort zone in my life,
Mhm.
really out of my comfort zone. I think everything else had been kind of had a tangent to something I was already comfortable with, and as I getting on a plane or even public speaking, like all these things I had somehow done and felt very natural.
Oh.
But this thing was like the one thing was like, no, this is foreign. This is different. This you're on a different trajectory. So when in the intro you shared of me, I say like I open new worlds. That was one experience where I literally felt like I had fallen into a different world. I'm in a dance studio for goodness sake, in a in this city in the States, and I'm with people moving their bodies, and we're learning this like
Yeah. Very interesting though.
pretty wild.
Yeah.
So at the end of that training, though, what came up was, oh my God, this is so powerful. And the way it's allowed me to get out of my own head and out of who I think I'm supposed to be or am
Mm.
is something I want more people to experience. The joy of being able to move in all these ways while getting fit. Because the word exercise feels like work to me, so I
Mm.
don't do it.
Yeah, you don't use that
But
label.
this is obviously we're exercising. We're exercising the body. It was like class was from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. every day.
Mhm.
It was intense. Um, but that day I was like, yeah, other people have to know what this is. So I walked out of there saying yes. When they asked if you want to be a teacher, I said yes. And that started a 20-year path to teaching this practice called Nia. And I also got each level is called a belt, like they do in martial arts. So I got up to my black belt. I was invited to be a trainer, one of 50 people in the world at that time. I was invited, and
Mhm.
while it was an incredible honor, I, still had my other work, and I just felt like I really had to do my own thing, and it was going to require a commitment that I couldn't make at that time. That was so that I kept doing, as I said, 20 years. I've taught in dance centers, community centers. I've gone into boardrooms and classrooms and
Mm.
done workshops. And the reaction has been consistently positive, and
Mm.
people are illuminated by it.
That's
And
amazing.
because so there is to me it's a spiritual practice. It's very body mind spirit. It's not dance to perform,
Yeah.
entertain. It's what am I experiencing as I'm also following the teacher and working my body and doing these things. Like the level of awareness becomes multidimensional.
Hmm.
You
That,
begin interacting with the world and yourself
so
through your senses and beyond.
so would you say that you're literally tapping into your multidimensional awareness and your multidimensional self?
Yes, definitely. And,
Uh,
like there's people who come to my classes who just come to, enjoy and get fit and be fit and,
sure.
with others, and that's fine. But I also really do find that people who come to class who have some awareness, who've maybe done other things that are somatically based, they will come back and say things like, wow, I really felt the energy in that
Mm.
class. Or I had this shift in myself, my cells felt like something just totally transformed itself
Wow.
in the class. So I'll get
Mm.
comments like that. And I'd just like to add, in the last year and a bit, I actually created my own movement practice.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
After the 20 years, which I have loved, there was something, and after this 2 years of this occasional lockdowns and things, I
Yeah.
was feeling this urge to really play even beyond the parameters of the Nia practice. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so I've created a new one. It's called Alaya. And
Alaya.
yes, and the name literally came when I asked, because I was like, is there a name for this thing that I'm doing? And it popped right in.
Like a download.
Immediate down.
Wow. Very good. Very
And then I
nice.
looked at it, I was like, what does this word mean? And it means joyful, noble, and sublime.
Oh, wow. Isn't that so cool when you get a download, and then you can look it up and you go, wow.
Exactly. I was
You've
like,
never heard
oh
of this
my
word
God.
before, right? You've
Exactly.
had your spirit guides or whoever,
Yeah.
somebody downloads universe source. Wow, your higher self, which is the same, right? Wow, that's
So
beautiful.
again, like I share these things and they may sound easy, like they just come, but sometimes the feeling of receiving that and then being accountable or responsible, whatever word you want to use, can
Mm,
be quite like overwhelming. It can, it's like,
okay.
wow, this isn't just me having fun and doing something playful. It's like there is something coming through.
Yeah.
And again, like I always ask, what can I do to really be available for this? And that, again, I see as a spiritual path, like spiritual strength.
Yes.
We need that. The more we create in the world, the more we do and show up in the world. Um, I don't know how people do it without it. I don't
Yeah.
think it's such a thing, right? Um, so that's exciting. So that's something I just want to mention that I am taking forward and
Oh,
class. Um,
fantastic.
yeah.
All
Yeah.
right. Well, I really enjoyed this. If there's one thing, one inspirational message that you could share, one final inspirational message you'd like to share with the audience, what would it be?
To boldly follow that inner voice. Um,
I thought there was going to be Star Trek, to boldly go where no man has gone before. Okay, okay, okay. Very good.
I think it is, and I say this, and I find even the older I get, that word bold is more and more and more important because what I've discovered and what I find most people I work with always realize is how available their dreams are to them.
Hmm,
How
okay.
available, not just possible, but actually available. The
Available.
ideas that come through us don't just come through us as entertainment, they come through as invitations. And if something bold comes through, that means you have the capacity to live it.
Hmm.
So why not?
Exactly.
Because when we don't, I don't know about you, but life doesn't work if I say no,
Me too. Yeah,
right?
if I say no to something coming through from spirit, or I delay it, or I put it off, yeah. Things don't work out until I finally, okay, I'm going to do this, or I'm going to be
Yeah,
this. I like to say I'm going to
exactly.
be this instead
Yeah,
of do this. But spirit birthing through us, spirit wants to birth
exactly.
things through us to lift the consciousness on this planet. I think that's beautiful.
Yeah. And then the more, and then, I think it's more to make it fun. It's not all serious and so,
No,
make it
in fact,
fun, be
should be fun.
playful with it. And so, that's where like all of my business and all its forms continues to expand,
Hmm.
is to support people. Like as I said, when I was young and I was creating my own path, I didn't have the people around me to say, hey, this is how you do this.
Yeah.
And so maybe in that regard, is like that's one of the roles that I play for others now, is when those bold ideas come, we've got to have support around this. We can't, we need, whether it's to create the resources to really have that idea flourish,
Mm,
we got to go all in.
absolutely.
So, yeah.
There's no other way to live, right? Go all in. Yeah, absolutely. With boldness. I like that. Okay, so where can if somebody in our audience would like to contact you, what's the best way to do so?
Mhm. Um, I think my main website is joyworks.com, spelled
Okay.
JOIWORKS.com.
Excellent.
But I would like to actually offer part of a book that I have around some of the people that I've worked with and some of what I'm talking about here
Sure.
for those who've been listening, and we can maybe include that in the show notes later.
Sure.
If you'd like to hear about more about that journey of when I started going to the dance and movement practice, I actually have done one podcast on there, so you could also include that link. But the
Absolutely.
main website is one place you can at least start. That's more focused on my consulting
Okay.
work, but it's still a place you can find me.
Nice. So yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of people in our audience that have a business of some sort, and this lady is an excellent consultant. I highly recommend her, obviously, because she's on my show. And I really appreciate you. And yes, we will put the underneath joyworks.com, right, is the main website. And then in the show notes underneath, we'll put those other links for you as well when you want to get a hold of Jasjit. Thank you so much, Jasjit, for being on this episode.
Thanks, Dale.
All right. Another episode of Soul Inspire. Thanks. See you again.
The Soul Inspire podcast is brought to you by dalecross.net. Discover the bliss and ecstasy within you. At dalecross.net, I can help connect you with your soul's purpose, passion, and mission. Your soul signed up for something great. Discover what it is with the tools I offer. Book a free one-on-one consultation now at dalecross.net and live your greatness.